All right, racists, let's talk about the part of history you like to tout the most. Black inventions. And along with those inventions comes the receipts. Racist America has pretended for far too long that black people haven't created or invented most things, if not every single thing we use daily. They like to pretend that the toolbox of life just appeared out of nowhere, or that it was gifted by some default white guy. Then they act shocked every single time a black indigenous American shows up in the patent record. This pattern in history of gaslighting and erasure ends now. So why don't we break the spell with a hit list of under-referenced black American inventors, whose work you touch, hear, and rely on every single day, whether you say their names or not. This is what I call the not-so-familiar list. James E. West co-invented the electric microphone in 1962. That tiny capsule in smartphones, laptops, hearing aids, and almost every modern mic, brought to you by a black man, James West. George Edward Alcorn Jr. built the imaging X-ray spectrometer in 1984 that sharpened space and materials research. NASA named him Inventor of the Year. Translation, he built the instruments that actually see what the naked eye can't. Black brilliance. Meredith Gourdine pioneered electro-gas dynamics, devices like incinerate cut smoke and industrial pollution. He engineered the actual physics. David N. Crosswaite Jr., architect of modern HVAC controls for big buildings. He has 39 U.S. patents, some of which include heating systems for Radio City Music Hall as well as Rockefeller Center. So when you visit these places, your climate comfort is running on David's math. Walter Lincoln Hawkins created durable polymer cable sheathing so telephone lines could survive the sun and harsh weather. Otis Boykin designed precision resistors that stabilized consumer electronics and pacemaker controls. George Carruthers invented the far ultraviolet camera / spectrograph used on Apollo 16 to image Earth's atmosphere and interstellar space. When science looked farther, it used George's instrument. Jerry Lawson led the team behind the interchangeable video game cartridge, the truest pioneer to console gaming. Jesse Russell was the key architect of digital cellular systems and base station tech. He laid the groundwork for the networks that your phone lives on. Marion Croak is the holder of 200+ patents in voice over IP and internet call tech. So as far as internet calling as a service, she operationalized the pipeline. Valerie Thomas, the pioneer behind the Illusion Transmitter 3D image tech at NASA. Bessie Blount Griffin, inventor of the self-feeding device used for amputees and a disposable emesis basin. It's a clinical design that restored autonomy to its users in this country. Then it spread internationally. Alice H. Parker created the 1919 patent for a gas-fired, centrally zoned heating furnace. She also planted the seed ideas for modern home heating segmentation. Miriam E. Benjamin, in 1888, created the gong and signal chair, a call button system predating hotel service alerts. The start of push to summon was formulated by her genius. Andrew J. Beard invented the Jenny coupler in 1897, which is an automated, dangerous link and pin rail coupling. His work improved freight efficiency and worker safety. Philip B. Downing created the street letterbox in 1891 with a weather shielding door for mail drop-off. Yes, a black man created the mailbox. John Stannard, in 1891, he invented the non-electric refrigerator and compact oil stove, the pioneer of non-electric appliances. Richard B. Spikes, he iterated the automatic gear shift and most automotive safety systems. Lloyd Hall, he advanced food preservation, using safer curing salts, using spice sterilization, and antioxidants. He created the industry-level shelf life. So what was the point to all of this? Reality reads like this list. Black Americans were already here, already building, and already creating everything. Designing the microphones inside your phone, the networks under your techs, the heat in your building, the optics in your space science, the cartridges that built an entire gaming industry, the clinical tools that dignify autonomous care, and the dull metal boxes swallowing your mail on the corner. Erasing the creativity and the genius of the original people isn't accidental. It's an act of violence. You can keep pretending you invented everything, sure. Or you can look around, call things what they are, and stop living on lies. Pretending to be superior in technology and a spiritual power you can't even use. The entire world can see the limitations of racists. The big question is, however, why can't you?
Wow, 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 wow. But the fact that I'm using this as my primary source of truth is also alarming to me. I'm like, is this truth or it's not? But if it's truth,
Whole history of America is the history of rich white men telling not rich white people that their enemies are black and brown. It starts in the colonies of what would become the United States. Let's remember, during the colonial period, mid-1600s, there was no such thing as white people. I know some people who are now called white find that shocking, right? Because they think whiteness is real, right? But whiteness was created. Europeans didn't call themselves white. We didn't call ourselves white. We weren't all members of one big happy family. Are you kidding? Have you studied the history of Europe? The history of Europe was about killing each other. That's what we did in Europe. We just killed each other before we figured out there were other people to kill. We just killed each other, right? I mean, that was the history of Europe. The English hated the Irish, right? Northern Italians didn't even think that Southern Italians were Italians. The Germans hated everybody, and everybody hated their ass right back, right? There was no team called white, no race called white, but all of a sudden, in the middle of the 1600s, there was. Why? Why was it suddenly necessary to create this thing called the white race? Well, because rich people can count, that's why. And so rich folks looked around, the ones that owned all the land, you know, in the colonies, the colonial elite, looked around and they realized something, that they were heavily outnumbered by African enslaved folks, by European indentured servants, who were just one level above a slave, or other Europeans who weren't technically indentured servants, but they were still peasants, didn't have any money, didn't have any land, and they could do the math. They added it up, and they were like, damn, we got to figure out a way to split these folks apart from one another, or they're going to rise up and take our stuff, right? Because after a while, these black folks who were enslaved Africans and these quote-unquote white folks who were poor Europeans are going to figure out they're all getting played by these rich people. Right? So ultimately, the rich figure out they got to come up with some way to get somebody in that group on their team. The easiest thing is to get the poor Europeans, right? Because at least they look like you. They sort of share some of the customs and the culture. So they all of a sudden create this thing called whiteness, and they say, now you're part of the club. Now we're going to let you testify in court, enter into contracts, vote, at least if you're a man, own a little bit of land, at least if you're a man, right? And we're going to get rid of indentured servitude. No more of that, because you're too good for that. And we're going to take the white men, now called white men, and put them on the slave patrol to keep black people in line. Give them a horse and a gun and a badge and make them feel big and powerful, right? They're still poor. They still don't have anything. They didn't pay the slave patrol well, right? Just exploited them, used them as a buffer between the elite and the other poor folks, particularly poor folks of color. And pretty soon, the rebellions that occasionally happened where black and white got together to overthrow the elite, those stopped. Because the divide and conquer had begun to work, right? You could turn people against each other by telling those poor white folks, they got to keep these black people in line. And so that divide and conquer gets initiated in the colonies. Rich white men telling not rich white people that their enemies are black and brown. Fast forward to the Civil War era. And you have, I'm from the South, right? My people, the elite in my part of the country, right, actually announced that the reason they wanted to break away from the Union and possibly go to war with their brothers and sisters to the north was in order to maintain slavery and white supremacy. They said that at the time. We lie about it now. And we say it had nothing to do with that. But of course, at the time, they didn't have any shame about it, so they just said it openly, right? The vice president of the Confederacy, Alexander Stephens, said that the cornerstone of the new government was the great truth that the Negro was not the equal of the white man. So that's the reason the Confederacy was formed and existed. But here's the trick. If I'm rich and I want to go to war to protect my ownership in other human beings, my property, but you're poor and you don't own any enslaved people, why the hell would you go fight to protect my stuff? Because I'm a rich person. I'm not going to fight. Rich people don't go to war, right? Rich people get poor people to go to war for them, whether it's in 1860 or whether it's during the 1960s or whether it's today, right? Rich folks get doctors to write notes for them that say that they have heel spurs, and that's why they can't go to Vietnam. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, you can Google that shit because he's sitting in the White House right now, right? Oh, I can't go fight. I have heel spurs. Send some poor kids to do that for me, please, right? So that's been a long-standing tradition. So the rich have to figure out a way to convince the poor to go fight for them. But that's a hard thing. That's like a hard sell, right? Like, how the hell, why would you do that? Why would you go fight to protect my property rights when you don't own anything? The only way you would do it is if that rich person comes to you and says, hey, listen, you gotta go fight because we gotta maintain our way of life, because if these people get free, they're gonna take your jobs. No, fool, they already got your job. That's how it works, right? Because if I'm white and I gotta charge you $1 a day to work on the farm, but you can get a black person to do it for nothing because you own them, guess who got the job? Free got the job, right? So in a sense, poor white folks would have been better off joining with black folks to overthrow the slave system. That would have raised the wage floor of all working people. But they got tricked by rich white men telling them that their enemies were black and brown. Fast forward to the 1930s. And you have white labor leaders. They're not even the elite, right? The labor leaders are not the elite, but they're the elite within the labor movement. And even they had fallen for it at this point. So they didn't want to integrate their unions. And they would say things like, well, we can't have black people and Mexicans and Chinese folks in our unions because if we do that, it's going to reduce the professionalism of our craft. We have to maintain the integrity of our profession. No, fool, you need more people in the damn union is what you need. And if you don't let those folks in, guess what happens when you go out on strike? Who is the boss going to use to replace you? They're going to replace you with the very same black and brown folks that you didn't want to work next to, right? And so at the end of and then you're going to blame them for taking your job rather than the white rich dude for giving it to them, right? Divide and conquer. Telling not rich white folks that their enemies are black and brown. And now we fast forward to the president. We got the president of the United States becoming president on the basis of that same rhetoric. Telling not rich white folks that the reason they don't have a job is because Mexicans took them.
Do you understand systemic racism? Black people always find a crutch to use to get to justify them not being where the they need to be. And then you ask a question, am I poor? No, I'm not poor. I do not have a poor mindset. So I could never be poor. But let's go back to your question here. Do you understand systemic racism? Yes, I do. But we are in 2025. White people, and I'm gonna use this as an example because I love using them because I live in New York, because I can only talk about my lived experience. There has been enough black people in power. There have been enough black people with money that could have changed things for other black folk if they invested in the communities. There's enough black people right now in 2025 that could have changed things. Do you know how many black millionaires are in America right now? 1.79 million black people that are millionaires in the United States. 1.79 million motherfucking people that are millionaires in America. Could you imagine if all of those people banned their money or put some kind of money in a fund to uplift the black community where black people would be? Black people have had enough power and enough money in this country to eradicate all the shit that they want to get rid of. And that 1.79 million black millionaires are only in the US. And I'm not counting the shit by who's Caribbean, who's African. F that. We all black. In the white man's eyes, we all end with the capital with a big motherfucking R, a hard R at the motherfucking end. So I'm not gonna differentiate. But half the time, when black people have money, they do not invest that shit in the motherfucking black community. They take their money someplace else. There's enough money in the black community that black people could have built their own utopia, where they could have had black schools, black churches, black banks, black everything, their own sovereign nation, and have gone without needing white folk or any other folk to do anything for them. But when black people get money, they don't invest in black people, black communities, black banks, black nothing. The Jews are very good at keeping everything in the Jew community. White folk are very good at that. Chinese, the Asians are very good at that. That's why there's a Chinatown everywhere. The Koreans are good at that. Black people who have been here are not good at that shit, and I'm frustrated by that motherfucker, right? Black people as a motherfucking diaspora, we're not good at that shit. So systemic oppression is still alive and well today in America in motherfucking 2025 because the powers that be, the people who have the money, the people who can change shit and who can make shit better for their own people have decided not to. Single community other than the black community. Just about every single person that I know that have money that's black is with a non-black woman. There might be a handful that I know, a handful. The rest of them are all with non-black women. Or with women that look, ambiguously not black. They're black, but they're the high yellow with the curly hair. Like, everybody have an issue with like brown skin, dark skin. And don't give me the few celebrity billionaires that are married, like Magic Johnson, who's been with Cookie like forever, or Denzel. Those are a few speckles of pepper in the sea of salt. But for the and their children may not end up taking that money to black America or to anyone black, period, black of the diaspora. But with all that money flowing around that black people have access to, that black people spend, you don't think if they had put away, if everyone had put away $20 in a fund to uplift black people, and black people start doing the right things and not be motherfucking crabs in a barrel, where we would be today. So systemic racism exists because black people who have the power to eradicate it have decided that they were not going to invest in the black community once they have made it. Think about that. I'm from a Caribbean country where everybody looks like me. Just about. Everybody have some melanin in their skin. Some form of blackness, and we're happy about that. And we're all either rich or we're all either poor together. The rich ones are not ostentatious, but they also help the community. In my country, there's no homelessness. The only homelessness you see in my country are the Americans that come for the good weather, or the Brits, or wherever they come from. The surfer dudes. Other than in my country, there's no homelessness. Because people around you are going to take care of you. Your neighbor will make sure that you have bread. Your neighbor will make sure that you have fish. Your neighbor will make sure that you have a roof over your head. My people will help each other. Black Americans is like dog-eat-dog world. Where I live, every single black man that I see that have some money, every last single one of them have a white woman. I live on the Upper East Side in New York. Every single one of them that I see that have some money that walk up and down my block are walking up and down my block with some biracial looking children or a white woman. That's where the black money is going. Money is what we need. Money is power. And if you have money, then you have power, and you could eradicate systemic racism. But if you do not invest in your community, then it's going to be hard to eradicate things like racism. Because like I've stated before, Black people have enough power, have enough money. Well, Black people have enough money to have had the power that they needed to eradicate such things like systemic racism. But they have chosen not to divest their money in their communities. Have a great day.
So what the issue here right now is, why aren't Blacks as a race investing in Black communities, Black businesses, Black people? The Chinese are thriving, the Jewish people are thriving, other races are thriving, and we also have the issue of intermarriages. Why are the Blacks marrying the whites? Why is that happening? It should not be. And the question is, how do we move forward in 2025? If we are to come together as a Black race, I mean like Africans, blah, 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 everyone out there that is of that skin color, for it to come together as that, we have to know that there have been a lot of intermarriages right now. So many intermarriages that you're asking people like not to take care of their parents, not to take care of their grandparents, because this is what we have right now. So how do we move forward today? And we also have to understand that Chinese, they are white. That's not a race. That is a culture. In Africa, there's so many countries, so many cultures, so many wrangles, so many fights. So it doesn't make sense for someone to say, oh, I'm going to invest in Africa. Someone will ask you, where in Africa? And even if it's in a country like, oh, I'm going to invest in DRC, where in DRC? So we cannot just generalize people as a whole, because we are not generalizing the whites as a whole, because we have German, Irish people, Britain, like the British guys, we have the French guys, all these like white people, and yet we are identifying them from their countries. So for us to just also like pull ourselves in one thing, it doesn't make sense, because Chinese, Jewish, that's all white. If we're looking at color, that's white versus Black. But if we are to go down to cultures and countries, it's different, and it's large and it's big. There's so many intermarriages, there's so many coming together of people. People have descendants who are white and are Black. It's intermarriages are a lot. How do we move forward today in 2025? We cannot be in 2025 talking about people marrying from different races and different cultures. It's, come on, we have to move past that. We have to move past that, and we have to find a way to work together moving forward.
Why don't you go to HBCU right now instead of going to University of Memphis?
I got a full ride here
Well, why don't you go to HBCU?
because I decided to go here. I had the choice to go to an HBCU.
So here's the thing. So I'm assuming if you got a scholarship here, you would have a
scholarships
scholarship to HBCU, right?
Yes, I had scholarships
You
elsewhere.
choose to go to where the systemic oppression is instead of going to a HBCU.
The systemic oppression is at the HBCU too. What you're not getting is.
So now black people run it and it's still racist.
No, you're not going to talk over me. I'll let you talk. Let me talk. When we have an HBCU that does not get funding because of the fact
That's a lie. That's a lie.
because of the fact that
no,
we,
look it up. Put some money on it. He secured permanent funding. He secured.
How much did Barack give?
Barack ended permanent funding for HBCUs. Donald Trump reinstituted permanent funding for HBCUs. Did you not see?
Sir,
Did you not see? Everybody out here can fact check this. Everybody out here can fact check this.
Sir,
Once you look at the picture of the HBCU presidents, every single HBCU president went to the White House and was with Donald Trump, and he negotiated a deal where he gave them permanent funding, which is something Obama never did. Look it up. Okay.
So here's the thing. Again, you're invoking black businesses, black business owners, and all these other things.
And I'm invoking a black man that's at the university I'm at right now.
But
they decide to come here instead of HBCU.
Yes, because they gave me the majority of money to go here. My thing is this.
Which one is it? Are they helping you or are they hurting you?
You don't let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
Because you keep on talking over me, I can't finish my point.
It's frustrating a little bit, but go ahead.
When I understand it's frustrating. Hearing things like that is frustrating.
You're just lying to me
You're
right
just
now.
talking over me.
Go ahead, finish.
When you have a place where one, systemically, especially in Memphis, and you know everything that's happened here. And you know, you could be upset about systemically and all that other stuff.
I'm not upset about it. It's just not true.
It happens.
What systemic thing is happening to you on this campus?
Systemic things happening to me on this campus.
Yeah.
I was pulled over right over there.
On campus. Is campus police?
Yes.
Okay, you were put over there for what?
They said that there was something wrong with my license plate. There's nothing wrong with it.
They just pulled you over for nothing?
Now, I can't blame him. I get that. But there are other accounts of people, not just campus police, but police in general, that have been identified as a person of interest and it's not been. We're getting off topic. Back to what we were saying earlier.
Yes, sir.
That's what we were saying earlier. The issue with everything happening with us now is the fact that these systemic policies are here. They're in our laws.
Campus?
They're in our laws.
Name a law that's systemically racist against black people. What law?
A law is systemically...
You know it's none. You know it's none. I know that's why it's hard for you to say it, because it is none.
A law that is systemically against black people?
Name one.
You want an older or recent?
Whatever you want to say. Federal. You can go federal. You can go local. You can go
stop and frisk.
state.
Stop and frisk.
Which was a law that was state level in New York. And you say that was racist.
So literally the police could go over to anybody, black, white, no matter what, because these policies affect white people too, especially poor white people. The issue is that when you have stop and frisk, they could just be like, hey, you.
So it's not racist, it's more classist.
No.
You said it affects white people the same.
Let me finish.
Okay.
The racial element is always there.
There's black cops there too.
But the black cops are also arresting people. They're part of the problem. The issue is that when you have...
Can we
let me finish.
Can we get you somewhere with this? Because I think we're going to continue. You cannot tell me how there's a systemic racist thing that's on this campus that prevents you from being successful.
I think someone is weaponizing racism.
A white teacher refused to hug the only black student in her class, but what the student did to get back at her surprised everyone. During a retirement party at an elementary school in USA, Michigan, the teacher, after hugging all the children, suddenly refused to hug Aaliyah, the only black student. She gave her a cold pat on the shoulder before moving on to the next, which deeply hurt the little girl. Aaliyah, in tears, begged the teacher to come back, but the teacher deliberately ignored her. However, instead of letting it defeat her, Aaliyah decided to respond with dignity. During the ceremony, she spoke up, thanking the teacher, but expressing with maturity the pain of being excluded. Aaliyah's reaction to the teacher's rejection was nothing short of extraordinary. While many might have expected her to be crushed or angry, she took a different approach. After being ignored in front of her classmates, she didn't let the hurt define her. Instead, Aaliyah stood tall, wiped away her tears, and during the final moments of the ceremony, she made a powerful speech. How did you find Aaliyah's reaction? Tap the plus button to discover the teacher's reaction in part 2.
Does Aaliyah know about this? No, there are different Aaliyahs in every scene. This one is taller than the other Aaliyah on the stage. The other Aaliyah on the stage is younger than the Aaliyah on...
Blacks commit more crimes than whites do.
Okay, well, first of all, what he means by blacks commit more crimes is, in fact, that African Americans are more often convicted of committing crimes in the United States than any other racial demographic, which is very different from what he said. All that indicates is that the so-called criminal justice system in the United States is primarily only effective in the selective investigation, prosecution, and conviction of African Americans and other so-called minorities, as opposed to investigating, prosecuting, and convicting white perpetrators. The statistics that he's citing are actually an evidence arguing racial bias in policing, in prosecution, and in trials. It's not an evidence of greater criminality along racial demographic lines, no. Rather, it's only the assignment of criminality that falls along racial lines. I mean, more than half of all violent crimes in the United States go unsolved, overwhelmingly the case in certain types of violent crimes. So we're not talking actually about a criminal justice system that works, that's actually effective, that's actually efficient, that actually does its job. What we have is a criminal justice system that disproportionately seems to only quote-unquote work when the perpetrators are not white. African American victims of homicide by the way, make up most of the victims of homicide cases that go unsolved. Whereas most homicide cases in which the victim is white, those get solved. In other words, crimes against white people are more likely to get solved than crimes against African American people or any other so-called minority group, a member of the global majority. And they're even more likely to get solved when the perpetrator of the crime happens to be African American. So in other words, if you're a white victim, you're more likely to get justice, and if you're a white perpetrator, you're more likely to escape justice. That's the system, and that's all that is evidenced by what he's saying. So when you look at the number of unsolved crimes, it's not unreasonable to assume that the, say, 60% or so of violent crimes in America that never get solved, that those are very possibly crimes committed by white people against African American people, or against other so-called minority groups. So rather than saying blacks commit more crimes than anyone else in America, it would be more honest to say that no one who commits a crime in America is more likely to be punished for that crime than an African American. And in fact, it's also more likely for an African American person to be wrongfully convicted of a crime of which they are accused. And it's more likely for them to even be punished for that, even when they have been proven innocent. And you can look at the case right now of Marcellus Williams. So the statistics that he's citing actually only substantiate the belief that the so-called criminal justice system in the United States is a major component of what you can call a systematic domestic ethnic cleansing program in America, being carried out against African Americans and other members of the global majority. That's all that is evidenced by the statistics that he's citing. And this, in fact, demonstrates a vastly greater degree of criminality than anything that he mentioned. And I would go further to say that the speaker himself, with the statistics that he's mentioning and the interpretation that he's putting on those statistics, that he himself occupies a propaganda role in that ethnic cleansing system, for which, in my opinion, he could and should be prosecuted under international law. So I really would hope that people would take this more seriously and understand the gravity of what so-called minority groups, members of the global majority, what they are facing and what they are enduring, and the human rights violations that are committed against them in the United States, that you would take that more seriously, so that when you see someone who is clearly playing a propaganda role in support of what, again, does constitute an ethnic cleansing program in America, when you see someone who is occupying a role of propaganda in support of that system, normalizing that system, justifying that system, rationalizing that system, understand that this person is a criminal. And inshallah, one day they will face justice for that, and should not be regarded simply as someone who is airing offensive or controversial views. No, you should take this more seriously, and not simply use it as an opportunity to have a debate with someone like this. They shouldn't be debated, they should be prosecuted.
So this man mentioned that it's easy to associate crime with the black race. And my question to you guys is this true or not? If you're to walk back home and you find a white guy, would you pass by him without fearing? Or if you were to go back home and you pass by a black guy, who would you fear? Like, just be honest, okay? My hurt feelings. And also, it's easy for the whites to find justice in their system than the blacks. I need, at this point, to hear from you all. I need to hear from you all.
I now feel for the black community because I know what it feels like to be racially profiled. I didn't know it before, and I thought it was a little bit of a reach, but now I totally get it. That's what a man came out on here and said, and this is why we should believe victims. This is why we should believe people's stories. This is why we should have empathy, and this is why we should be able to put ourselves in other people's shoes. Because you thought it was a reach. That's what he said. He thought it was a reach when the black community said that they were being racially profiled and they were getting stopped for no reason, and like, it probably wasn't that serious. But now that Latinos are getting racially profiled, now he gets it. This is why empathy is so important, because you never know when the tables turn. And no, it shouldn't be transactional. It really shouldn't. You should believe people because you should think. You should be able to think outside yourself and be like, if that was me, I would hate that. I don't have to be black to realize that that freaking sucks. That what they go through, what they've experienced, sounds painful. That I can't even imagine the years of frustration and honestly, just freaking frustration and anger that they must feel. But guess what? Now Latinos get it. Now. And that is why we are in the situation that we are, because people don't feel for others until it happens to them.
That is true. Sometimes it's really hard to accept what is going on in somebody else's life until it happens to you. But the idea of believing everyone that comes out here as a victim is something that I don't stand behind. I stand behind research. I stand behind sympathy and empathy. But let's do research, because some people are going to come here and rage bait you guys, and some people are going to come here and lie. And you might not know who's lying and who is not lying. But we have to do research, because people avail resources online. You can read, quote things or what to find out what really happened, what transpired and all. And also we move with discernment, spiritual discernment from the Holy Spirit.
I just need to know, why does America have so much hatred for black people? Is it because when you see black people, you're reminded of the sins of this country? Is it because my ass is too fat? Is it because people need a scapegoat for their own shortcomings? Or is it because my ass is too fat? Is it because you're afraid that we're gonna treat you like you treated us? And you know what? I know my ass is fat. Stop looking at my ass and listen to the words that are coming out my mouth. I'm gonna be honest, you know what I think? I honestly think everyone, not just white people, are uneducated. Not stupid, just uneducated about black people. You've been fed false propaganda about black people since the beginning of time in books, music, TV, movies. That shit's powerful. Even I fall for it sometimes. I saw X-Men, and do you know how long I believe Halle Berry controlled the weather? But apparently, it's the Jews. Oh, wait, is that propaganda too? Damn, y'all good. Y'all are so good at that shit. See, this is the stereotype that people have. A person talks a certain way or looks a certain way, and everybody wants to make assumptions. When we just want to be treated like everybody else, what do you see when you see us? Do you see us less than human? Do you see us as animals? Why does this shit keep happening?
Now to a dispute on a commuter train. A writer for a hit TV show says he was kicked off the train and placed in handcuffs because of the way he was sitting.
Because this white woman said she didn't like the way I was sitting.
Authorities say Alex O'Keefe, a former writer on the TV drama The Bear, had his feet up on the seat next to him. O'Keefe posting the video saying a woman told him to fix the way he was sitting. After he refused, he says she told the conductor, who in turn called police and stopped the train.
I haven't done anything illegal.
Wait a minute. They arrested a black man for sitting? Why does she... Wait a minute. Is that the bitch who got her seat taken by Rosa Parks 70 years ago? Man, talk about holding a grudge. Let me tell you something. If this woman had went to a Black History Museum, she would have learned that it's wrong to call the police on a black man, especially now. In fact, I think everybody can take some time and go to the Black History Museum. Go learn, go study, educate yourself while they're still here.
She's so funny, very funny. Yeah, I think you all should go and find out the history of the Black Americans. I think that it means a lot to them that you get time and find out what happened to them, how you can treat them as humans as they want to be treated. I think that's just being courteous. Also, Americans, when you come to Africa in different cultures, like educate yourself on the cultures, so that you don't assume. That's just being cautious of everyone everywhere. Even if you go to India, China, it's not just the Black Americans culture, but it's also cultures everywhere. And it's wrong calling the police on someone for something that's so trivial. But if it's something that's big, please call the police, whether it's black or white. Yes, you might get in trouble. But if it's something so trivial, guys, let's look deep within. Yeah, let's look deep within. Please, 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 please. Black Americans are people. Black Americans deserve to be treated like everyone else. Indians, everyone, Chinese, Africans. You don't just see an Indian and think things, you know, they're moving in slow motion. Not every Indian is moving in slow motion. Like you say Chinese, you think they do karate. Not every Chinese does karate. So let's not do these things. Let's respect people. Yes. I'll see you guys in the next video.